we getting married, there's some things that we have to ignore in a person when we're getting married to them, and maybe say, well, the 70% nice, what I want, but the other 30% I can ignore that and get married to them?
I believe so, because you really would not get anybody 100% what you're looking for. So a lot of persons have a list, and you would not get 100%. But the things that you decide to ignore, you need to make sure that those are not things that are crucial to you. Like they don't step on your values. They don't go against what you believe, what you stand for, your goals in life, where you plan to go the direction that you plan to go in. So yes, there are things that we have to ignore, because I am not perfect. So how can I be looking for somebody on the outside, on the other side, that is perfect? So we have to ignore some things, but ensure that those things that you ignore are things that you can live with, because they're not going to go anywhere. Most likely they're not. And when you get married, you would then discover some other things. So on top of what you have to ignore, you have to do with some other things. So ensure that the things that you have to put up with are not overwhelming to you.
All right. We can't go for the whole book, but there are certain things I wanted to touch, as we mentioned, that I want to touch. One of them is, well, the marital expectation.
Mm-hmm.
What in your book, when you talk about the marital expectation, can a person get married and be so disappointed that, you know, as you say, they want to walk out? They're so disappointed in it, a Christian marriage, that it didn't meet their expectations, and it didn't meet my expectations, I want out now.
That happens a lot. And then when I was doing that chapter, I asked a lot of couples that question: what are your expectations, or what were your expectations? And what were some of them that when you got married, you realized, okay, this is not what I expected? One person actually told me, I had no expectations, because I believe that when you have expectations, that is when you get disappointed. But we all have expectations. You expect that your partner would be faithful to you. You expect that they would be supportive of you. You expect that they would be contributing around the house, and it's not going to be you alone. So we have expectations. What happens sometimes is that before we get married, we don't talk about our expectations. We take things for granted. For example, you might take it for granted that once a woman gets married, she's going to want to have children. So we don't talk about that. So you get married, and then you realize the man is talking about having children, and you're like, what are you talking about? I don't want children. He took that for granted. So sometimes our expectations are not met because we did not talk about them. We took things for granted. Sometimes we had a discussion, but over time we changed. And so the things that you wanted before you got married, now that you have evolved a little bit, you no longer want them. And the person is coming to you now asking you to pay up, and you are no longer at that place that you were when you made that promise. And so you decide, okay, no, we're not going through that. And of course, that can run into problems. For example, if somebody really wants to have children, and their partner decides now that they're married, life is going so good, I don't think we should have children and spoil this. If that person's whole life dream was about children and passing on some inheritance or passing on their name, then that could be a really, really sore point. Some other expectations are like sexual satisfaction. There's some people who actually believe that marriage is a cure for promiscuity. So they believe that once they get married, they will have access to sex all the time, and they would not have an issue with looking out. And of course, this is not true. Marriage doesn't cure you if you're promiscuous. You need to deal with that issue on your own. So if you are expecting that, you waited until you got married because God says to wait, and you're good Christian people, and then you're married and you realize that your partner is so boring. There are lots of marriages where people are just living together. They're not happy. They're on their way out. People have gotten divorced because of unmet expectations. So yes, your expectation could be so far from the reality that it could lead to divorce.
Mm-hmm. All right. I'm talking about when you look about just slide it down, because we want to take questions too. Essential relationship words. Talk to us about that.
So that was actually another book idea or activity idea that I had that didn't really work out. So when I was writing the book, I decided, you know what? Let me just put it in the book as a chapter. So the words that I included in that chapter, of course, you can use the letters and make it relevant to your relationship. But I just put in, it's basically running down the entire alphabet and putting in words that I believe are very essential to every relationship. For example, A is accept. Accept your partner as he or she is. Leave the life changing up to God. B, one for B is brag. Find ways to make your partner look good in public. Commend them out loud so others can hear. So it's just a running down of the alphabet of words that I believe, excuse me, are very important to every relationship. D was discover. Discover new ways to please each other. In every relationship, there are ups and downs, but I believe that's important. Okay, sorry. I believe it's important that we don't let a relationship get boring. So discover new ways to please each other. One of the words in F is fight. When the relationship seems to be in trouble, fight for it. Fight to keep your ship afloat. So those are just words that I felt were really, really important for every relationship. R, remember important dates, items on the to-do list to say thank you and I love you. Now I know apparently it's not a big deal for me, but apparently women are very big on dates. So men, please remember the anniversary date. Please remember the birthdays. I've seen several times when the couple is asked, how long have we been married? The husband has to turn to the wife because he can't really remember. So apparently it's not as important for the man, but because it's important for your wife, men, it is something that you have to make important for you as well. S, one of the words in S is simple. Pick a flower from the neighbor's fence or at the side of the road and hand deliver it to your person. Simple gestures can be just as effective as lavish ones. W, here's a word in W, walk. Working together provides a wonderful opportunity for couples to enjoy nature together while enjoying each other's company. It also stimulates conversation. So you're getting exercise in without having to pay for it, and you're spending some quality time together. I know people say life is so busy, we can't really carve out some time, but this is something that you can do together without actually having to carve out any extra time. And the last word here, actually the last two I want to give us here, for why, yearn. Never let that intense desire go out. Always yearn for each other. And Z, zero. Never let the love cup reach down to zero before a refill. We've heard, I'm sure, of the relationship idea that in every relationship there is the give and the take. So you have some deposits and then you have where you actually take out. So if you are depositing a whole lot of good, then the times when you have a bad day, you have a lot in your deposit. But if you are giving bad vibes more than positive, then there'll be an off balance. So ensure that the positive side is always topped up so that you will be able to use that as a buffer when things are not as pleasant as they usually are.
All right, I think there's a question in the chat, but you know where I want to go, what we spoke about the last time. We want to go on good Christian girls. We want to talk about that. But there's a question in the chat, you see it?
So somebody is asking about the name of the book.
All right, you just give that to them.
So it's eating his cake and wanting to have it too, the married man's dilemma. It is available in hard copy and also in Kindle. It is available on Amazon. So even if you don't have a Kindle, I don't have a Kindle, but I downloaded the Kindle reader on my phone, and that's where I download and read all my books that I buy off of Amazon.
All right, so we'll talk more about that when we close to tell persons where they can get it. But before we take questions, major questions, you know, we talked about that, the good Christian girl factor.
Right.
Talk to us about that. Because, you know, sometimes that is where our young women struggle. Talk to us about that in your book. Good Christian girls.
So, I don't know where. I didn't do research on that, I must admit. Somewhere it has been taught to ladies and young girls that sex and enjoying sexual pleasure is for the man. So we hear the teenage boys, they talk openly, they laugh, they make jokes, and somehow it's acceptable. But for the girls, not so much. So ladies are not really supposed to be talking about it. And for the most part, we are somehow taught to believe that it's just for the man. The man is supposed to be the aggressor in bed. The man is supposed to be the initiator. We have been hearing all the time that men like sex more than ladies. So then we end up with a problem where if you are asking a question as a young person, if you're asking a question about sex, you are thinking about doing it or you're already doing it, right? That is the assumption. If you are asking a question, then you are not given a straight answer. So we're not really given a lot of information. Your parents are shy to talk to you about it because they have not been having that conversation with their parents. So it's something that is handed down. If you get information, it might be from somebody who the society considers loose. In my book, I put it could be some dirty old man who is probably drunk and he's willing to be raw with the details. I believe there are lots of married people who are having wonderful sex, but somehow, because it is holy and sacred, they keep all the tricks and the tips to themselves. So what we have now is a lot of young women getting married with misconceptions. Of course, don't get me wrong, there are lots of young women who get married and they have a wonderful sex life. But a lot of times we hear them that they are very prude and their husbands complain that they're not willing to do this, they're not expressive in bed, they don't ever initiate. And if the man has had experience before, he knows what he's supposed to be getting. And now he is married and he's promised himself to his wife and he's not getting what he's hoping that he was waiting all this time for. We run into some serious problems there, and that sometimes actually end in divorce. Because if I tell somebody that, you know, I've never had sex before, then how is it that I'm married now and I'm this wildcat? Then that means that I have had some experience. So the ladies who try to be prude and who try to be good Christians, they actually, they play it down. They leave the man to be the initiator. They don't show that they actually want it. They don't leave him breathless because, like I mentioned in my book, we don't think that the good deaconesses who wear white in church, we don't think that they behave like that. So we have to be good Christian girls. Another issue that comes up there, or another contributing factor, could be sometimes when you've had to hold out for so long. I mean, you've been holding out forever because you're doing what God says you should do. And now you're married, there sometimes is an issue with making that switch in your mind. That, okay, I'm married now, this is okay, this is no longer sin. Because you've been holding out for so long, you're still in that mode. So when it's time for you to express yourself, you don't really know how to. Because, I mean, for as long as you've been married, you have not been expressing yourself. And that is a real reality. And what I tell people, okay, I understand. However, if all remains equal, I think that after a while, you should kind of find ways to get out of that shell. So you are shy, you don't know how to express yourself, you're not sure what you're supposed to do. But given some time, once you understand that your husband's body is yours and yours is his, and what you're doing is for each other's pleasure, of course, within reason, it's a mindset that you have to come out of, because you're supposed to be willing to please your partner, again, within reason. And if you don't, then that can lead to temptation. Of course, not giving any excuse for the men who cheat, but one of the reasons for sexual intimacy in marriage is to prevent people from cheating. You've had a very tempting day with everything that's been thrown at you. When you come home, you're supposed to be able to release what you've been holding out all day. And if you don't have that outlet, and if it goes on and on and on, the devil knows us, and he knows that you're suffering because you're not getting what you're supposed to be getting. And that can definitely open a door. So we definitely have that problem, even among Christians. And that's one of the reasons that I talk about sex a lot, because I just think it's very unfortunate that a lot of us seem to be getting it wrong. And I think as Christians, we should be getting that, at least that right.
All right. Any questions for okay, there's a question before we dive in, touch into some question. Get the mic to. Yeah.
Yes. My question is that if two unexperienced person get married, all right, why there should be a fighting for experience? They are too young, unexperienced. You might say, but the man not pleasing me, or the woman. How do you know the man not pleasing you when you are too young, experienced persons? Unexperienced person.
So that's
they're inexperienced, but they're still fighting. That one not pleasing, that one not pleasing. How do you know that that one not I'm pleasing you? How do you know that?
So I get that question a lot about inexperienced people. However, for as long as we have been talking to people who are married, for as long as we have been reading books, we have been hearing that sex is supposed to be a pleasurable experience. We hear that it's supposed to be a stress reliever. We hear that it's supposed to make you feel good about yourself. If you are married and you are engaging in sexual intimacy and it does none of those things for you, if after every encounter you feel that you don't feel fulfilled, and even if you've never had experience, you know what fulfillment feels like. If you don't feel fulfilled, you know something is missing. If there is, what's the word? The word just escapes me. If at the end of it, you don't feel loved, you don't feel closer to the person, then you know that that is not what it's supposed to be. If you feel like you have been violated, you don't feel like your emotional cup has been topped up, then you know that something is missing, even though you hadn't had that experience before. So people always ask that question. And yes, there is, you can know if you are getting what you're supposed to be getting, even without prior experience.
Another question before? Oh, people silent still? Okay. Question? Okay.
In as much as you spoke about fulfillment, sex supposed to be part of the fulfillment in marriage, right?
Right.
Okay. If someone is inexperienced, you're talking about two people getting married, maybe one is experienced and the other one is inexperienced on the sexual part of it, and the woman is not getting an orgasm. Am I going too far?
No.
The woman
That's part of sex.
The woman is not getting an orgasm, and the man is satisfied. His experience is satisfied. what happens to that woman?
What happens to that woman? That's an interesting question. That's not where I thought it was going.
Well, she was just talking about
What happens to that woman?
so the man is always satisfied and the woman is never satisfied. What would that woman do? What it would almost like lead the woman to do?
So that is something that happens a lot actually. Because men are turned on much faster than women. The man, if he is not careful, if he's not considerate, he can basically get his orgasm and turn over and sleep, or get up and shower and continue with life and leave his woman undone. And that is something that happens, and that is an issue. So men have to understand that women take a little while longer than them to get turned on. So if there is an issue about insufficient stimulation up front, there's insufficient foreplay time. The man might think, okay, well, I touched you here, I touched you there, you should be ready. If he is considerate and they have a conversation about it, and she can say, okay, every time you're done and you leave, I'm not done. This is supposed to be for the both of us. How are we going to address this? We can't be married forever until death do us part and I am left undone. So there are a couple of things that they can do. They can talk about it. And again, we're talking about if all things are equal, we're talking about two committed persons, two rational people. So the man is willing to have a conversation and try things. So they need to engage in foreplay a little while longer. He needs to try a couple different techniques because it has been shown that over 70% of women do not get an orgasm by penile penetration. So he has to try different techniques. Then there might also be other issues in the relationship that trickle down to the bedroom, because a lot of times people say, you know, we're having problems in our sex life, but it really is not their sex life. The mechanics are okay. But if you have issues outside of your bedroom, it can trickle down. If you don't like somebody, if you had a fallout, you don't want to get intimate with that person. And if mentally you are not there, your body is not going to follow. So it could be a couple factors that can contribute to that. But one of the big things is not sufficient foreplay for the lady. The man not understanding the mechanics of it, and he's probably only trying one thing. The woman also not understanding her body and her contribution to her pleasure, because it's not up to the man alone to please you. You have to contribute as well to your pleasure and to getting your orgasm. So there are lots of factors, but I'm sure that that experience could be very frustrating to the woman, but that's a conversation that a lot of couples need to have and probably do not have. In the case where the woman is the one who has had experience, then that could be a source of temptation for her, because imagine she knows what it is like to have an orgasm and now she's married and committed to this man and he's not doing it for her. That can be a real problem. So as uncomfortable as it might be, that is definitely a conversation. No man wants to hear his wife say, you're not doing it right, or you're not pleasing me. So we need to know how to talk about it, how to address it, so that we don't feel hurt and shut down and don't want to talk about it at all. So talk, try, tinker around, poke around, try new techniques, set aside a designated time where we can play around, do different things. Eventually you get it because we're married forever. So we have some time to work around and see how we can get it right.
You had some, okay, let me just take one more question before we dive in. Yeah.
Not question, a comment on the same question. I think even in the case of a woman, the woman can relate to the man where she actually showed the man what she needs, how to make her enjoy a sexual pleasure. You know, it's like a two-way switch. And that's where the dialogue comes in play. You know, they should be able to dialogue and walk each other through it. And sometimes because some people just jump into sex like, but the love is not there, the communication is not there, and sexual is a communication thing. So I believe that communication should be restored where the person can talk to the person, guide them as to what they need to do too.
I really like that comment. And let me add to it or contribute it. Some people think that when you're having sex, it's supposed to be quiet. You know, we both know what we're supposed to do, so let's go and do it. But it's about communication as well. So in the act, you can talk to each other and say, you know, I like this, you know, I do some more of this. Or even you don't have to make it verbal. You can direct each other's hands, or you can position your body in such a way that the person knows that this is pleasing to you. They want more of this. So it's about communicating, like the brother said, communicating during, so we would get the desired end.
Yeah. Before you go, well, the question's coming, but I just wanted to go somewhere. The advice you had for wives, we'll take it after the question. Just two more things we'll touch on. Yeah.
Just another thought on the same subject, that you know, the relationship between two have to be one that they enjoy with each other. Now, when somebody is impotent, there are certain things that contributes to that. And the wife's supposed to, as Brother Castor say, walk the husband through these things. And sometimes when you are very young and you are active, like I can understand that a young man can be impotent. That's the time you're supposed to be very active. You know, sometimes I taken back by that. But what I'm saying is the wife can dialogue with the husband. Tell the husband, because sometimes you need some good exercise. Sometimes you need to eat some good food. Sometimes you need some good rest if you're overworking. And these are tips that they can walk each other through, right? And these things just come through like that. You have to love the man, and the man have to be able to love you to come to that conclusion.
Let me ask you, you had some questions for wives. I mean, wives can marry and maybe take things from. We are always having said, you know, when before they were wives, they were maybe looking a particular way.
Right.
And now sometimes when they're married, you know, they have the longest clothes in the house, you know, walking everywhere, underneath their toes, underneath their foot. And so before they were single, you know, the man could watch them and say, you know, well, hey, but when they are married, so the counsels that you have for wives, let us know and talk to us as you talk in your book.
So one of the things that I pointed out to the men was that you need to understand that being single is different from being married. Because when you were dating and you showed up to your girlfriend's house, she looked like a goddess when she stepped out. But you did not know how long it took her to get there. So now that you are married, you still want her to look the same way, but then you're fussing when she's spending 2 hours getting dressed. But that is how she used to operate before you got married. So in order to stop you from fussing, sometimes the wives would not do all that she used to do before. And then the man will start to complain, you know, you're not looking as put together as you used to before we got married. But she is not being given the same amount of time that she used to be using before to put herself together. Anyway, that aside, there was some advice that I was giving to wives, and one of it was, some of it was exercise, be ambitious, support his dreams, be sociable, allow him to be himself, be expressive in the bedroom, be the initiator, be available, and dress up. Those are some of the advice. That's some of the advice that I give in the chapter that I entitled For Wives. Because sometimes we take for granted that, okay, my husband is my husband and he is not going to leave me. And so we treat him anyhow. and he comes home at the end of the day, and he, like our brother said, you're dressed up anyhow, any old how. We forget that when we dress and we go out in the day, we are facing the world, and we put on our best. But then when we come home, that person at home is a person that has our back. So we should dress and look decent for them too. I'm not saying that we're wearing high heels at home, but what we are saying is that we should find a nice balance so that we're looking decent. And like somebody said, I could hardly wait to go home to undress and look homeless. That is not how we are supposed to be looking at home, bearing in mind that men are very visual. Also, we're talking about be sociable. Men like to brag about their wives. Men like to make it look like they made a good choice when they chose their wife. So be the one that your husband is proud to introduce his friends, and you can carry on a decent conversation with in public and not embarrass him. So those are a few of the items that I had for the wives in the chapter for wives.
All right. Anybody has a question online? Because they say we almost forget our online audience. We focus in the church. Anybody has a question on Zoom?
So somebody was asking for advice for the men. So even though this book is talking about the married man's dilemma, a lot of the information there is for women. But yes, there are 2 chapters specifically. Actually 3. Being single, chapter 2 is being single is different from being married. The sneakiness of cheating, marital expectations. So we talked about the sneakiness of cheating. We talked about the fact that some people, they don't want to cheat, but they just go close to the edge and decide, we can look over from there. If you have to delete things from off your phone, if you have to whisper when you have a conversation, if you cannot share with your wife what you just talked about with somebody, then you are cheating. If you are uncomfortable in your relationship, men, please have a conversation with your wife. If you are looking out at some other person and you are telling yourself, if only my wife could have been like that, it's important that we learn to accept our partners as they are, because we made that choice. We are the ones who decided for better or for worse, and we signed. It's important that we find ways to be comfortable with the choice that we made, because sometimes we are thinking that the grass on the other side is greener when you don't know how much work that person had to put in to keep that grass looking good. In the same breath, somebody said that the grass is greenest near to the cesspit. So it's really important that we don't look out and long for what we really do not know. So some advice for the men: please be realistic in your expectation. Please be realistic in how you expect your wife to function. If you come home at the end of a tiring day, the both of you, then please contribute. Don't expect that she would do everything during the day and do everything in the evening and the night as well. So please contribute. Also, if you are thinking about getting married and you are making your list of things that you are looking for in your partner, ensure that whatever is not on that list, or ensure that the things that are not on the list in the person, those are things that you can actually live with. Because it's really unfair that you get married and then trying to change the person, or you get married and now you are thinking of cheating because you now discover that that person is not the person for you. So yes, the book is about the man's dilemma. And it's important that we understand that because sin is in the world, the temptation is going to come, but we have to understand where the struggle is in terms of the devil trying to break up families. The devil is not happy when we are happy. And let us try to understand that temptation is not the sin, but it's giving into the temptation that is the sin.
You mentioned something a while ago and I took note of it. You say that if a man has a phone and he cannot show his wife the text, he's cheating. Is that maybe going over the top? Because we live in a world where everybody has a lock on their phone.
Right.
Your wife has a lock on her phone. You have a lock on your phone. So you saying that any text that your wife cannot read, then that person is cheating.
Okay, so not necessarily any text, right? So we have to take it within context. If you are having a conversation with a female co-worker, as a man, you're having a conversation with a female co-worker and it's about work and it's confidential information, then that is not something that your wife should be privy to. I mean, it's business you're talking about. And you have that conversation, you say, you know, the nature of my job, I really can't share a lot with you. And that is okay. But if you're thinking that if my wife sees this conversation I just had, then I'm going to have to answer some hard questions. I'm going to be in some hot water. So she cannot read that. Or you're thinking, oh my gosh, she saw my phone, it's unlocked. What if she sees this? Then is when we know, there's something a little bit shady about what is going on. So not 100% of the conversations our partners can see because of the nature of it. But in terms of if your conscience is telling you it is going to affect your relationship if that person sees it, or worse yet, if you, after you've had the conversation, you decide it's in your best interest to delete it, then we're having a problem there.
So are you advising maybe a couple to have locks on their phones?
You know, that's up to them. I don't have any locks on my phone, and I don't think I intend to. If God says that I should get married, I don't think I have one. But for a lot of reasons, people put locks on their phone. You go out in public and you have important information on your phone. You leave it at your desk at work. You don't want anybody to go into it. So a lot of persons have locks on their phones, not for the sake of their family members. And a lot of persons have locks on their phone and their partners know the password. So it's about, why are you putting a lock on your phone? If it is that you think it's a security reason that you're putting it on, fine. If it is that you want to put a lock on your phone because you don't want your partner to see what you have there, then that's an issue.
Because most people talk about my privacy. Because you hear that talk, well, your wife needs to have a privacy and you need to have yours. How can one evade the privacy of another one in terms of?
I think if you tell somebody you don't want them in your phone for whatever reason, it could be, like I said, for work purposes, and they just decide they want to go in. Or like I see a lot of people on divorce court, they say, you know, I was suspecting my partner was cheating, and then one day he was sleeping and I went into his home. If you know that your partner has a problem going into your phone, I don't think you should. We are human beings, and even though we are married, I believe everybody's entitled to their own privacy. For example, one person might want to go to the toilet, and when they're in there, that's their private time. I don't want anybody coming in the toilet. I don't care if it's my husband, if it's my wife. When I'm in there, that is me time. And if you decide, you know, we are married, what's the problem? And you just bust inside the door, then that is not right. So even though we are married, there is a certain level of privacy that is supposed to be extended to each other, and that goes to the phone as well. If your phone rings and your partner gives you full permission to answer the phone, well, fine. But if when your phone rings, you're just snatching up the phone and you're suspicious of every person who is on the line, and your partner did not give you permission to answer the phone, then that is an invasion of privacy. That's my personal opinion.
All right, anybody has a question before we just get quickly? The mic on?
Yes, okay, now good. One of the greatest reasons, I believe, for breakup of marriage, dating, is anytime somebody has doubt or assume. And it's quite easy to do this thing. Anytime you start doubting about somebody, it means whatever the person do, whether good or bad, your mind is always disturbed. And that is something that needs to be clearly removed in any relationship. The reason of doubt. You see, and that brings back to the question, Why should you want to have so much privacy when dealing with your other half, which you're supposed to say you are one? So technically, we bring in all these issues up, which really create doubt. And tomorrow, today it might be fine. Tomorrow, it's going to lead us into trouble. So I believe try to be as neutral as possible. Remove all these barriers. Be open to the person. When you do that, you gain the person's trust, but never let somebody have doubt in you, because even when you're doing good things, the person will treat you bad.
Anybody else quickly? Yes.
I would like to know what advice you would have for the men, the married men, who normally goes to their wife's phone and probably might see a message and reply. What advice you have to the men?
So you said that the husband would go to the wife's phone and reply. Is it that a message came through for her on her phone and you decided to answer it and pretend that you were your wife, or you are answering it stating that you are the husband? Which is it?
No, what I'm saying is that probably the wife might have a friend, a male friend.
Uh-huh.
And, you know, I mean, everybody has friends, and probably the husband might feel, well, he feels some way, and she got a message from that friend, but he find that message is not, you know, and he respond in a negative way. What message you have for the married man?
Right. So my question is he replying as his wife, or is he replying and identifying himself as the woman's husband and saying, Mr. don't call this woman phone again, eh? I'm the husband.
Replying as the husband.
Ah, okay.
Husband that is fearful.
Okay. So in a case like that, I've heard that happen quite a number of times. And that's a conversation you need to have with your wife. I always say people don't really get into a relationship unless they are allowed in most of the cases, right? So if your wife has a male friend and you have some issue with that, have a conversation with your wife. If your wife is not willing to block that person, if your wife is still having that conversation with that person, even though she knows that you're uncomfortable with it, that's a conversation that you have to have with your wife. If you are going on the phone and communicating with the man, I'm not sure that's the best thing to do. Yes, it might stop him. Yes, it might propel him on. It can go either way, but have that conversation with your wife, because she is the one who is allowing the conversations to come through. She's the one who is not blocking. And a lot of times people have friends from the opposite sex and they got married and they keep the friendship, and the person on the other side is not very comfortable. Have a conversation. Why is it that you're still willing to communicate with this person even though you know I am uncomfortable with it? That is never something I advise people to do, to go on their partner's phone and to have a confrontation there. That is not really in good taste. That is my advice.
Someone was just telling me that some men, maybe they love to have friends, love to have people that they're close with, but they do not want their wives to get close to anybody. What do you think about that?
So some men have female friends?
So, yeah, some men have female friends, but they do not want their wife to have
male friends.
Male friends, or vice versa, maybe.
Right. So again, have a conversation. What is the concern? Sometimes we know each other's past, and we know that anytime somebody gets close to us, we get weak in the knees. And so maybe that could be the reason that you don't want them to have that kind of friendship, because we know the history. Sometimes it's just because we know ourselves and we know we get weak in the knees quickly. So we are judging the other person, believing that the other person will do the same thing. But have that conversation, and that's a conversation that we should have before we get married. Because if you are seeing that before you get married, then that's a huge red flag, because that person can become somebody who is dictating your every move. No, you can't go out tonight because I'm not willing to go out. And if I'm not with you, I don't trust that you are going to behave yourself when you go out. So that is definitely some sort of controlling going on, and you don't want to be in that position when you get married. So ask the question, why are you having a problem? What is the problem that you are having? And how is it that you are okay with having those friends, but you're not okay with me having those friends? What is that based on? So again, have a conversation.
A couple of questions. We're just in a question to my phone asking, should a man have a close female friend that he has not introduced to his wife, vice versa? Should a man have a close female friend or a woman that he has not introduced to his wife?
But it depends on what close means, and there are the different reasons why the man might not have introduced that person to his wife. It could be they're in different countries. It could be there was never the setting. If the reason is because he does not want her to suspect anything and something is going on, then of course that's a problem. If he knows that if he knows that if she knows she's going to have a problem and he's keeping that a secret, then we have a problem. But I don't particularly have an issue, and that's just me, because I know a lot of people have an issue with people having good friends of the opposite sex. But we have to know the people that we're dealing with. We have to know our partners. We have to have an idea of who our partners' friends are. So what is the reason you have not introduced us? And is it that when the opportunity arises, you will make an introduction? It's important that we know, but it's also important that you know why it has not been done as yet.
And somebody's asking, before we get ready to close, somebody's asking the hard question again, a very hard question for you maybe to answer.
You're easier than me.
Asking that if you are a man or maybe a woman and you see another person that you just a married person, see somebody they like, and what should they do? Should they stay away from that person?
That happens a lot, you know. That is very common, and it actually is very normal. Because when we got married and we vowed to stay with our person, remember that person is not perfect. Remember there was a list that we had, and there were things on that list that we had to leave out because we accepted that nobody's perfect. But if we keep jumping from partner to partner because we believe that the person that we're now seeing is better, then chances are we'll never settle down. There will always be somebody else who is probably more good looking or more intelligent than the person that we are currently with. However, the important thing is about keeping ourselves true to the vows that we made. It's about staying true to the commitment that we've made. No, the both of us are not perfect. No, another woman could probably cook better than your wife. Another man is probably making more money than your husband. But it's about the commitment that you made to that person to stay into that relationship. Yes, if you see somebody and you say, wow, that person is really, really nice. Okay, so the thought went through your mind. Don't dwell on it. Don't start to come up with scenarios. What if? I wonder. Don't start to ask questions. Don't start to get close to that person because you know where that will go. So yes, it is very normal for that to happen. But the important thing is that we don't act on it. We don't chew on it. And that we stay true to the commitment that we made to our partner.
And we just quickly questions because you're almost ready to wrap up because I promised you an hour, no big questions that's flowing in the chat. So I trying to help you there. So sister, and there I think Rebecca, there maybe 2 questions in the chat.
Yes, I'm seeing them.
Well. Yeah. Sister.
We're talking about men. How an experienced woman would deal when she, like, experienced woman in life, married to a man because she became a Christian, and when she married, her husband is a cold husband. How an experienced woman should deal with that situation? And another question, we're talking about all the different issues, but to me, the issue about
sex and partner and relationship is love. Because sometimes when you're married and you meet a partner, there are sort of things in our life you will never able to can deal with. But I think if you love that person, we will have to try to understand each other and work with each other.
So the first question that you asked, that has been addressed to some extent earlier on when we talked about the one person being experienced or not. So it can go both ways. You could be a man who is experienced and your Christian wife is not, and she's very prude, and you remember what you used to get, so you are unsatisfied. And the same thing can go for the woman who is experienced. So the same advice that we gave then can be applied. A lot of communicating, a lot of talking, a lot of being vulnerable, open to trying new things, poking around, laughing when things didn't work out, because you are married until death do you part, and that's a very long time. So you might as well try to have fun while at it. So yeah, that's the advice I was given, some of the advice, and it can be applicable as well to the female side of it. So there are two questions in the chat. One of them, why are we of the opinion that it's wrong for a female to have a good male friend or vice versa? My best friend is male. We have been best friends for a very long time. And I always say, if I get married, I need my husband to be okay with that, because that relationship is solid and it's not going anywhere.
What about if he's not okay with it?
If he's not okay, I don't know, no? I really hope not, because when I need advice on something, that's the person that I go to. We have each other's back, and there is nothing sexual about that. And I think that a lot of times the issue that people believe would come up is inappropriate sexual contact. And if I can convince, or if history has shown that there's nothing going on there, I don't see why there should be mistrust. And in the same way, if my husband can show that he's not the kind of person to flirt around, and I have met his friend who is a female, and I've seen the way they interact, I really see no problem with it. If we can show a history that whenever this person is around, they're very flirty and they're very inappropriate, then that's when we have a problem. But once we are okay with the interactions, and once they are faithful and they stay true, I really don't see the problem. But a lot of people have a problem. Have that conversation with your partner. If you're okay with abandoning all your friends, because some people have done that for the sake of their marriage and they seem to be happy with that, then to each his own. But I am not in that category of people. I think that once there is evidence that all will be well, then there should not be a problem.
So next, that's the last question. Maybe just before.
So there is one more question. How does being insecure affect a marriage? What is your advice on how a couple can have more trust in their relationship? So insecurity, that's a whole next kettle of fish. Insecurities can cause a lot of things, including violence. You go out, your person wants to know who you went out with. They don't believe you when you say you went out with yourself. You have a phone call from the office. They don't believe that it's from the office. And so there's always suspicion of something going on that is not going on. Stories made up in their mind that can lead to a lot of things. So it can lead to people being violent. It can lead to you being controlled. It can even lead to you being getting a divorce. A lot of the stories that we hear on news with people killing their partner is because of insecurity. The person is accusing their partner of being unfaithful when that might not be true. Sometimes the insecurity is based on the fact that the partner does not feel that they are worthy. Long time we used to make a joke and say you get married to an ugly man because he would feel that he does not deserve us. And then as the years went by and good sense prevailed in us, we recognized that that was not making too much sense. But we have seen a little bit of truth in that. So people who feel that they do not deserve their partner can become very insecure and become very violent because they feel that everybody they're talking to is somebody that their partner is cheating with. So insecurity is very dangerous and can lead in the extreme cases to death. Somebody can kill somebody because of the insecurity. Have more trust in a relationship. Trust is built over time. If something has happened that caused the trust to be eroded, then you have to work double time. So if there was nothing that happened, but we just want to have a trusting relationship, time would show that. You are friends, you have been friends for a while, you've seen the way the person operates, you've seen that they are very mature in their interactions with others. We see that you go out and they can spend the money well. You see that whenever they go out and they get into a heated discussion, that they are not somebody who just blows their top. They can keep calm. So you know that when your person goes out, they will represent you well and they will not embarrass you. Over time, if trust has been eroded over time, you would have to work in terms of being as consistent as possible, because now you have to work back. You have to try to prove all over again that that mistake that you made is not going to happen again, that that was a one-off mistake. Sometimes if the trust is not there, that can just lead to the total fall apart of the relationship, which happens in a lot of cases, because when the trust has broken down, the other person just decides, I can never ever trust you again. So with time builds trust. That is one of the ways that you can build trust.
So that's the last question. That's the last question we're taking and we're closing. So a man can have a woman as his best friend. Where does the wife fit in this equation? So a man can have a woman as his best friend. Where does the wife fit in that equation? Shouldn't the wife be his best friend?
So I hear that a lot, and I'm just going to share my opinion. I hear that a lot, and I think your best friend is your best friend and your wife is your wife, and I think those are two different things. Some people believe that their spouse should be their best friend, and some people are okay with their partner being just their partner and not necessarily their best friend. Yes, you are supposed to talk everything with your partner, share everything, discuss everything. That is great. And having a best friend is not going to take that away. But I also have been reading a lot on the fact that sometimes we expect our partner to be everything to us. We expect our partner to be the one that we go to the movies with, the one that we go shopping with, the one that we have our therapy sessions with. So we expect this one person to be everything for us, and that one person cannot be everything. So in my opinion, if you have somebody who is your best friend, of course, purely that nature and nothing else, where you can also pick up and go shopping with, because your person definitely does not like to shop. Yes, I don't see anything wrong with that. But again, to each his own. If your person has a problem with that, that's a conversation you need to have. Don't hold out and say, I'm not letting go of my person. Again, why is it so important that you have this person as your friend? And why not blend the two together when you and your best friend go? Why not let your partner come along as well? But have a conversation. Every relationship is different, and every relationship has its own dynamics. And I can stay here and advise you, and it's not going to work for you. So you need to find what works for you.
All right, I think we're going to close there, but you have one comment. We just give you 10 seconds, Wiseman, 10 seconds, and we close there.
Yeah, dealing with the best friend. Your partner is your best friend. You can't put somebody over your partner, period. So if your partner feels uncomfortable about a relationship you are having with someone, you got to make adjustment. You got to get that person to feel comfortable with your friend, but you cannot put your friend over your partner. No, that cannot go. So you must be able to balance it out. And if you cannot balance it out, it's going to be a problem for you.
Agreed.
Well, 5 seconds. You have 5 seconds. You see, I have to let my friend loose there, Rebecca. Rebecca, I thank you for your patience. You know, one
That's
more
okay. I don't have a hot date tonight. That's okay.
Okay, okay. You know dates tonight?
No dates tonight.
Okay, okay.
On the question of mutual relationship and trusting each other, I believe when two persons are together, you should be able to know your wife, and your wife's supposed to know you. Like in the case of my wife and I, she's the accountant. I am the hustler, right? And so I bring in everything. She takes care of that. And I have no problem with that. I trust her. She comes and she would come and she would show me everything, and she would, you know, and then we would sit down together. I said, well, what about this? What about that? But she's the accountant, and I am the workhorse. And so I'll put it like that. And so we learn to trust each other, right? And on the question of when before you get married, you used to wear, you know, your long clothes and your when you are with your husband, sometimes you just have to get on wild.
Amen.
Sometimes I go to the store and I buy my wife sexy panties. I find I love it. I buy it for her because I love to see it. You understand what I'm talking about? Confession. Yeah, I love to see it, so I buy it for her.
And ladies, when your husband buy those sexy things for you, don't be shy and say you're not wearing it, please.
Exactly. And so I believe that in your bedroom is your private area, you and your husband, or you can get on wild. Or you can get on wild.
Well, so we know one of our we know we have somebody at wild in our midst.
We know somebody who is getting it right. Amen.
Really good discussion. Benef, we out of time. Okay, good.
My question is not my question, but what advice do you have for the men who eat outside? I mean, go out and buy lunch and not to eat their wife's food. What advice do you have?
I had a conversation with a man who said when he got married, he didn't eat his wife's food because the way he was brought up, he only ate his mother's food. And so it was very difficult for him to get used to somebody else's taste. So he used to throw away his wife's food because she used to unpack for him every day. Unknown to her, he would throw it away and then he would buy outside food. So there has to be a reason why he's not eating his wife's food. So again, let's talk about it. Why are you not eating your wife's food? Is it that you want to continue eating your mother's food? So it's about finding out the reason why. If the doctor puts him on a strict diet, and so he has to be eating something different to the rest of his family, and his wife is insisting, listen, we eating salt in this food. Nobody else have high blood pressure, it's only you. And so she is cooking all the salt. Then of course he's not going to be eating her food for health reasons. So let's find out why he's not eating it. It might not be something that serious. It might not be that he's not a good husband. So again, what's the reason?
So wives, husbands, try to eat your wife food. Try to eat it. Rebecca, we thank you so much for joining us today. You made lovely company as usual. Can you tell the persons where they can access the book? They can, because you could not say everything there today.
Right.
There are so much things that we in the book. You have how many chapters? So many chapters. So
there were 8 chapters in the book.
So tell us where we can get it so that we can actually share that maybe and share that with a friend as well.
So if you are online and you are listening in from Trinidad and Tobago, then you can get it directly from me. My number 868-687-6690. Whereas if you are from Trinidad and Tobago listening in, You can get it directly from me, 687, that's 868-687-6690. If you are not from Trinidad and Tobago and you would like to have a copy, I'm hoping that you would like to have a copy. And for me, more than getting the sales, it's about sharing the information. So please get a copy, if not for yourself, for somebody who you know would benefit. The book is available on Amazon.com. Again, Eating a Cake and Wanting to Have It Too, The Married Man's Dilemma by Rebecca Beckles. You can go on Amazon.com and you can either get a hard copy or you can order it and get it on the Kindle reader, on Kindle. I don't have a Kindle, but I downloaded the Kindle reader on my phone, and that is where I read all the books that are offered on Kindle. So when you buy the Kindle, it gives it less than 5 minutes, and you already have it.
And the
so
Kindle
you have option.
And the Kindle version is only maybe $9.99. So
the Kindle version is cheaper, definitely. So please jump on, take a read, share with your friends, encourage your friends to buy a copy as well. I sold a copy to a pastor friend of mine, and he said that I made his work a little easier, his premarital counseling job a little easier. So he was able to give it to the couples that he was with, and they read to get some advice. So it's suitable for marrieds, for singles, for men, for women. It's easy reading. It's not very scholarly. I like to be down to earth, and that is exactly how I wrote.
Okay, again, so Rebecca Beckles, the author of Eating His Cake and Wanting to Have It Too. So, well, thank you for joining us. As I said, you always make lovely company. We look forward to having you again, and you are always willing to come and talk to us. So,
thank you very much for inviting me.
All right, it's our pleasure, and we look forward to having you again. And we want one of the things that we want our people to do is to support our Christian people, our Christian authors. So I'm making a big pledge so that you can go out and support Rebecca this afternoon and buy and purchase her book. Rebecca?
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And have a blessed rest of the night. As you say, you have no date, so you can
I don't have a hot date tonight, no.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
At this time, we'll do our closing song. We will, Timothy will lead us into our closing song, and then we will pray.
Our closing hymn is hymn number 189. Who can share the heart like Jesus? All that thrills my soul. Let's all stand as we do that number. Who can share the heart like Jesus? By his presence all divine, true and tender, pure and precious. Oh, how blessed the holy mind. Oh, that thrills my soul is Jesus. He is more than life to me. And the fairest of 10,000 in my blessed Lord I see. Love of Christ so freely given, grace of God beyond degree, mercy higher than the heavens, deeper than the deepest sea. All that thrills my soul is Jesus. He is more than life to me. And the fairest of 10,000 in my blessed Lord I see. Every need is unsupplied, every good in him I see. On his strength divine relying, is all in all to me. All that thrills my soul is Jesus. He is more than life to me. And the fairest of 10,000 by the crystal flow. to me, and the fairest of 10,000 in my blessed Lord I see. Let's bow for prayer. Father, we thank you for the information that you have given us through your woman servant, Sister Rebecca Beckles. We pray, Lord, that you will bless her and you'll continue to inspire her as she speaks to our congregations on relationship, on marriage, on singleness and everything. We pray that you will continue to have your way in our life and continue to bless us. May what we learn today or whatever we desire to do, may it be a part of you, and that our relationships will be better and fruitful. Bless, guide, protect, and have your way in our lives. Continue to take control. And as we go throughout this untried week, we pray that you will go with us and guide our way. This is our prayer. Praise it. Have a pleasant week, everybody, and thank you for coming.